Let me start with the first kind of tangible document that mentions EOSC, and this dates 2016, where the European Commission published a paper about EOSC, which I call here a problem statement paper, because I think that's very well describes the problem that the Commission aims to solve or overcome by establishing EOSC. And as you can see, this is listed in 4 points here, and it's very much focused about the sharing and reuse of data, as well as digital infrastructures and digital services that can help scientists to reuse that data and to draw further scientific results from those. Based on that initial kind of vision document, the Commission in late 2016 established a high-level expert group, which brought some clarification about what topics EOSC should cover, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. Here I just dropped some of these key points that this first high-level expert group reported about in this final policy, in this final report. And based on those terms and based on those recommendations in that report, later on a second high-level expert group was established and many other things happened. What happened since 2016 or 2017 roughly? The European Commission started to organize annual summits or stakeholder meetings around the European cloud, established, as I said, a second high-level expert group, which brought some further recommendations into the EOSC landscape, published a so-called implementation roadmap that defines 6 action lines: architectures, data, online services, access and interfaces, rules and governance. And then around these access or these 6 action lines defined some further topics and calls for proposals. The Commission also organized, based on their project, a so-called EOSC portal launch event late last year. And as you will hear later on, the EOSC-hub project very strongly contributed to that and was one of the drivers and implementers of this EOSC portal. And lately, the Commission launched an EOSC executive board consisting of high-level representatives of several S3 infrastructures and the infrastructures. And this EOSC executive board, which started early this year, will be a main driver and policymaker for the EOSC for the coming years. In parallel with those actions, the Commission launched a number of calls and through those a number of projects to implement the vision and the different policy set. The first was the Infra Central, which wasn't really called originally an EOSC project, but during the project execution, it became clear that Infra Central plays a key role in cataloging services that can be reused for EOSC. The EOSC pilot, which some of you may have heard about, and that's actually finishing these days. The EOSC-hub project, which is the largest in terms of budget and the consortium size so far. The OpenAir Advanced, Freya, number of S3 clusters, as far as I know, 5, that have some of those started earlier this year, and the rest will start later this year. And an even larger number, I think around 10 or maybe 15 infra EOSC projects that are funded from this year for the next 2 or 3 years in the different calls. So the landscape is growing clearly, and EOSC-hub in this landscape plays a central federator role that defines and implements many of the policy recommendations from the high-level expert group and later on from the EOSC executive board, as the first results from the board will be published. So let me now move on to the EOSC-hub project, which is coordinated by the EDI Foundation. I'm personally involved in the project very deeply. I coordinate one work package and I contribute to at least 4 or 5 other work packages. The project is really large with 13 work packages with over 100 institutes in the consortium. The project started on the 1st of January last year, and it runs for 3 years. So we have more or less 2 more years to go. The vision of the project is to enable researchers from all disciplines to have easy and integrated access to advanced digital services, instruments, data, knowledge, and expertise, so the human network that they need to collaborate to achieve excellence in science, research, and innovation. The key words here are open science. And the European Open Science Cloud, that's a side remark, is a cloud for open science. It's not an open cloud for science. So that's something to take into consideration. The whole EOSC concept is about facilitating the reuse and the openness of data and online services, as well as the human network that enables the further research and further advancement of those services and data. What the project EOSC-hub does in practice is that it mobilizes providers from an existing networks, very precisely the EDI Federation of Compute and Data Providers, the EUDAT infrastructure of data providers, the Indigo Data Cloud, which is a technology project and the network of technology experts who develop software basically for data management, and from nearly 20 research infrastructures from the S3 roadmap. The project brought these stakeholders together to establish a hub, which is basically the core of EOSC, the integration and management system of the services, of the data resources, and the human network that enables the European Open Science Cloud. Just a few words about the 2 biggest stakeholders in the consortium, the EDI Federation and the EUDAT. Probably Ian provided you enough information about EDI. It's a federation of several hundred data and compute centers, mostly from Europe, but we have collaborators and providers from outside of Europe. The key focus is on cloud, high throughput computing and container computing, and the required data staging and data movement services in order to bring research data to the compute centers and back to the users or the publishers. The other big player in the consortium is the EUDAT Collaborative Data Infrastructure, which is a network of data repositories and data management provider institutes that facilitate research data management by providing different types of services such as metadata catalogs, such as archives, and related training and user support. So these 2 stakeholders, complemented by other projects and, as I said, nearly 20 research infrastructures, work together to establish the EOSC-hub project, which established roughly by the end of last year, the hub. The hub is this, what we call the federation and the central place for the services that enable the European Open Science Cloud. The hub itself can be approached from 4 aspects or has 4 areas of work. The first and foremost important are the services themselves that researchers or research infrastructures can interact with. And these are data that can be downloaded or used for online processing. These are online applications, scientific gateways, workflow benches, different types of simulation and visualization tools, baseline or generic services such as infrastructure as a service cloud, such as bare metal compute services, such as the storage space required, the related training and consultancy that users need in order to become familiar with them. That's the first area. The consortium itself already includes more than 50 providers that provide more than 70 services, but the main point of EOSC is to federate external collaborators, so we expect that these additional external contributions will radically grow in the coming 2 years. The second area of work are what we call the federation services. And basically, this is the glue that sticks the contributed services together and make them accessible online via remote access in an open manner for science. And this includes things like an online marketplace through which users can request access to services, an authentication and authorization infrastructure to enable seamless log-on and login across different providers, usage accounting, service availability monitoring system to ensure the good quality and health of the services offered. The third area is called here federated operations, which is basically IT service management practices. Some of you may have heard about or are familiar with the ISO 20000. We use a FITASM approach, which is very, very close to ISO 20000, and it basically provides good practices as well as requirements on providing services online for research. And this includes things like how to negotiate service level agreements, operation level agreements, how to plan outages and changes in the services, how to do customer relationship management, how to deal with feedback from users, how to incorporate that into the continual improvement of the services and the activities. The last area are the processes and policies that help to regulate the provisioning of services, the consumption of services, help us harmonize this diverse landscape of providers, and helps us move together as a community. So let me zoom into the area 1, which is the services area of the hub. What services we already have that you can actually already use through this EOSC portal and the EOSC marketplace? You can see here these pillars, and basically there are two types of pillars. One is the so-called e-infrastructure pillar, which incorporates generic services from EGI, UDAT, Indigo Data Cloud, and as we move ahead from other providers. These generic services provide capabilities that can be useful for any scientific discipline. I'm talking about baseline compute, baseline storage features that you can incorporate into your domain-specific activities. And the other pillars represent science discipline-specific services, ranging from humanities through engineering, medical, health sciences to natural sciences, that typically include services really tuned to a given audience with a given scientific background. These services expose abstractions and concepts that are familiar to the audience from those disciplinary areas. So the EOSC landscape, and specifically the EOSC portal, brings these services together and make them accessible. One word still about the generic services that EGI, UDAT, Indigo Data Cloud are offering. We often represent these through this research data lifecycle diagram, which I'm pretty sure all of you have seen in the past in different forms or shape. Basically, this diagram shows the typical stages of a research lifecycle, from discovery of existing data and existing applications or tools that can be used to perform an analysis or prediction, performing the processing, data cleaning stages, curating the results, preserving that or hiving that, and then sharing the results through different channels to the different types of audiences. On this slide, you can see the names of the generic services that EGI, UDAT, Indigo Data Cloud together provide to facilitate research communities implement the research data lifecycle. Basically, research communities can choose the most appropriate services from this offering in order to, for example, discover or share data or perform certain types of processing steps or analytical steps. The project provides not only the services, but of course assistance for finding the most suitable service for a given community or for a given use case. And this technical support enables you to become familiar with the right types of services and then to integrate those through APIs, command line interfaces, or graphical tools into your research practices. These generic services, as well as the discipline-specific services, are all exposed and are accessible through the EOSC portal. This is the system that has been opened in November last year through a European Commission organized event in Vienna. This is the entry point about EOSC. It exposes the services through this menu, which I have open in the screenshot, but other menu items provide you further background information about EOSC. So if there is one place to remember to go after the webinar, is this EOSC portal. This portal is maintained and further developed jointly by EOSC-hub, OpenAir Advanced, Infra Central, and in the future by the other projects that come on board and launch on the EOSC landscape, such as the S3 cluster projects that some of you are involved in. And let me move on to the other areas. So area 2, 3, 4 in this slide. So just going back to the slide, I talked about the services so far. Now talking about federation services, federated operations, and process and policies. Just zooming into a bit what those means. Basically, those enable the federation and the integration of new providers into EOSC from outside the consortium. Those services that EOSC-hub provides, for example, are the portal, the EOSC portal that I showed a screenshot about, a marketplace through which users can submit access requests for service providers in order to require an authenticated access to a certain capability. It provides an authentication, or we provide an authentication and authorization infrastructure that service providers can rely on to log in their users through federated institutional accounts, for example, that can be their university or research accounts. We provide accounting and monitoring system that again help resource providers monitor activities on their services and those statistics about those. We provide help desk in case service provider doesn't have one. We provide service management training as well as support to help providers become kind of good enough or stable enough for broader consumption outside of the usual research community. We manage the service portfolio of the whole EOSC landscape, which means cataloging new services as they come on board, making sure that they are properly described, checking their quality, and publishing them only after they meet certain quality criteria. Supporting new providers to integrate with the generic services. Again, I'm talking about generic, for example, cloud computing, storage, and AI, for example, security infrastructures. And we proactively reach out and engage with new communities and new projects who we believe will be key players in offering services in the EOSC landscape. And the S3 clusters and other infrastructures that you represent are key players. We know that they are really high on the agenda for EOSC-hub for the stakeholder engagement. We proactively engage with the kind of, let me call them, or the old S3 clusters, which were funded in the previous Horizon 2020 cycle. We proactively outreach to the new clusters who are launching this year, and we are open for other and research infrastructures who want to become service providers or want to play some other role in the EOSC landscape. What role you could imagine or you can play in the EOSC landscape? This slide shows three different activities or roles that we believe research infrastructures would play. On one hand, they already offer services for certain disciplinary areas. Those services could be cataloged and become shared through EOSC with an even broader audience. The point here is to facilitate cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary science that would integrate multiple providers and multiple services across the whole disciplinary landscape. You could join as what we call here early adopters, who are basically adopting some of the existing services from EOSC in order to make their own services more robust, more scalable, more secure, more usable in whatever sense that means. We support those early adopter activities through what we call competence centers, We have already such early adopter small projects for things like Elixir, which is life science infrastructure, LOFAR, which is a radio astronomy infrastructure, and for many other large international initiatives. And of course, you can become yourself kind of consumers of existing services without becoming a provider. You can request access to those services through the EOSC portal and the respective marketplace. You can provide feedback about the use, and together you can help us improve the way how things are exposed and offered to science. We very recently, actually, at the end of last week, just written or finished writing a white paper that offers a framework for collaboration for initiatives like the ERF initiatives. This white paper, which I have a screenshot about, is now available on the EOSC-hub website under the publications, and details 5 engagement areas that we envisage and we offer for collaboration. The first one is using existing services. So that's very easy. You go to the EOSC portal, you find a service you need, you request access to that, and then the service-specific support team will help you with the integration or with the usage. If you don't know what service to use, there is a channel, there is a support team who can engage with you and support you choose the most appropriate service from the catalog for your use case. The second area is joining as a provider. I will go into the details soon. The third area is the so-called EOSC Digital Innovation Hub, which is an initiative under EOSC for facilitating engagement with commercial entities who can become themselves consumers of services or providers of services, or just have any sort of technical bilateral activity with industry and academia involved. The fourth area is benefiting from the training and user support and best practices that we offer for initiatives, or yourself becoming a training provider or user support provider for certain areas of your expertise. And the last one is networking, which is participating in the broader community of EOSC, coming and maybe co-organizing the events that we organize, running sessions for disciplinary areas, for example. So I'm going now into detail, a bit more detail about the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth area, because the use of the services have been covered before. So joining as a provider, the main benefits are promoting the adoption of your service outside of the usual existing user community, getting statistics about the usage, feedback from the customers through the online platform that we can offer you. This platform also helps you manage the incoming requests to your service, respond to your request, enable the users with, for example, federated login. And of course, as a service provider, you will have stronger influence on how EOSC evolves, and through the different service provider boards and the policies that we define together, you can influence the evolution of EOSC. What are the requirements? That's an interesting question to become a provider. On this website, we already exposed these requirements, and as we move ahead, I'm pretty sure this will evolve. But now we are using these as the starting point, and we use these requirements to onboard the first providers from outside the EOSC-hub consortium. So the first point, the service should be accessible by users outside of the original community. So that's kind of the open science idea. The service should be described via a common template that we provide for you, and we use this description to stick the description into the EOSC portal, or in other words, to describe your service towards new audience via the online marketplace and portal. At least one instance of the service should be available in production environment. If your service is a data set, then it's easy. The data should be online, accessible for the new users. If your service is, let's say, an online scientific application that can scale into large machines, then you should have an instance already available, even for some demonstration or testing purposes. And additional instances could be provided through negotiation with the new incoming users. The service should somehow embrace the concept of fair data publishing and fair data management. This is an extremely tricky area. There is no single definition for what this means for your case. This requires further analysis and discussion, how you interpret fair and how your service meets the fair requirements or concepts, and how through those concepts it facilitates open science. Basic information for users such as release notes, documentation should be available, and some help desk or other channel to support the incoming request should be also available. The next area that I would like to just briefly talk about is training and support that we already provide by coordinating the different training and support teams from the service provider institutes. And these teams basically provide two types of support or two types of training. One, which is really service specific. So how to use direct workload management system on cloud infrastructures. So it's really specific about one single topic and one single technical service. The other types of training and support that we offer or we federate are training that facilitates open science. So again, referring back that EOSC is the cloud for open science. So topics like good practices in research data management, good practices in IT service management, good practices in securing online services, these kind of things that really can facilitate open science, irrespectively of the specific technical service that we talk about or that we use for implementation. The coordination activity in practice means that we federate content, which are courses, which are training content, slides, exercises, and any kind of support materials from training. We make that available through the different EOSC-related promotional channels as well as the website. So what you can do is you can attend those trainings. You can learn about them through the website, or yourself can become a training provider of topic that you see fitting under this open science topic and you would like to share with a broader audience. The next area I would like to briefly talk about is the EOSC Digital Innovation Hub. The term Digital Innovation Hub was coined by the European Commission outside of the EOSC initiative. Digital Innovation Hubs are basically an ecosystem of startups, other types of industry entities, as well as research and academic institutes that are brought together under a common and shared topic to facilitate interaction and business between academia and industry. Until now, there are more than 200 digital innovation hubs exist in the European landscape. These range from automated manufacturing to aircraft design to God knows what. Basically, the EOSC hub established one digital innovation hub which facilitates interaction around the topic of the European Open Science Cloud. And this digital innovation hub facilitates the onboarding of industry in the implementation of the European Open Science Cloud and facilitates the business between the academic institutes in the European Open Science Cloud and external industry stakeholders. The main activity that the Digital Innovation Hub does until now is running so-called business pilots. A business pilot is like a small project that delivers a specific service in EOSC that is targeting industry or industrial consumers and have academic partners involved in the provisioning or in the development. So how you can get involved? You can join the Digital Innovation Hub and find your exact role in this landscape, or you can propose a business pilot, either as a supporter or as an industry entity. You can request the inclusion of your business pilot. And the last area I want to mention is the networking and strategic partnership becoming part of the community. And here, as I said, we already engage with the largest initiatives on the S3, on the EOSC landscape, and things like the PENESC, EMREPAIR, EOSC Life Escape, and the SSOC. Those are the new cluster projects that recently started or will start in the next months. We have engagement with the infrastructures, and with these initiatives, we try to build direct kind of agreement of work plan that we have, how we exchange services, what are their responsibilities, what are our responsibilities, going from the technical area, such as the online services and online data, to the user services, such as the support and training. So we are open for partnership with additional stakeholders, and if you happen to work in one of those projects, then very soon we hopefully will formulate some short written kind of agreement of how EOSC-hub and your project will collaborate. And let me close the presentation with some advertisement or announcement of two events. One is the EOSC-hub Week, which is the annual flagship event organized by the EOSC-hub project, which will be in mid-April in Prague. There is still a few days left for the call for posters and demos. And I really encourage you to participate at the event. And if you do, submit a poster, for example, about the services that you have in your infrastructure and the services you expect to move or share through EOSC. And the event itself will help you do that. It helps you by inviting S3 specific keynotes, by organizing science discipline specific sessions. We will have 5 of those covering the 5 disciplinary area represented by the new S3 cluster projects. Those science disciplinary sessions are co-organized by the respective S3 cluster projects. It will have plenary presentations about how to join, so detailing a bit more that slide I had earlier about the requirements and benefits of joining as a new provider. There will be sessions which are called Service Provider Bootcamp, which is a consultancy event for future providers or new providers where they can directly engage with experts of specific federation services that they wish to use. For example, how to integrate with the federated authentication system of EOSC, how to integrate with the infrastructure as a service cloud to scale out my compute part, and so on. We will launch at this EOSC-hub Week a call for research projects or research use cases who want to use these generic services from EOSC-hub, and we will provide funding through those new projects so they can scale up their experimentation with the generic services. And finally, we will have trainings around specific topics that can be of interest in your community. And the other event I would like to advertise is the EDI conference and the co-located Design Your Infrastructure workshop. This will be in Amsterdam a bit later. That's the annual event to engage with specifically with the EGI network of service providers. The topic will be, of course, the services offered by the EGI network, which is very much on the computing part and the data staging to compute resources and back to your facilities or your infrastructure. The conference itself is open for presentation and poster abstracts. And the co-located design workshop is a one-day workshop focused on analyzing scientific or research infrastructure use cases, how they wish to use compute facilities and data management facilities from EGI, and act as a direct consultancy event where in a single day, we basically design a possible setup or a suitable setup for your specific use case. And by the end of the day, you can go home with an implementation plan on how that particular problem could be solved and who are the providers in the EGI network who can make that happen. So I encourage you to submit also maybe a use case to this Design Your Infrastructure conference in order to have a tangible plan of how to engage and how to exploit the EGI compute and data management services. So thank you for your attention. That was the summary I prepared for you.